Hello, you lovely people, and welcome back to Sabbatical Stories. I'm your host, Bex Thomas, and I'm still in Vietnam, so once again, please excuse any scooters you can hear in the background. I created this podcast to inspire courage and normalise taking a break from your career. I'd love it if you could help too by subscribing, liking and rating the show. It really does mean a lot. Today's episode builds perfectly on our last conversation with Sahara Rose Devore, as I'm joined by Iuliana Marchian, a certified transformational solo travel coach through Sahara's Travel Coach Network programme. Iuliana went from an unfulfilling teaching assistant job in Romania to taking a sabbatical in Morocco, which then led her to become a travel writer and Romania's first certified travel coach. She now runs Authentic Travels, a community helping people connect with their authentic selves through solo travel. Her work has been featured inside Himalayas, Metador Network and Culture Trip, and she recently published Balak, 6 Weeks in Morocco, the first in a series of solo travel memoirs. I love this conversation and I know you will too, so let's dive in. Deep down, you've tried, dig deep, search wide, enjoy your climb, it's all for you. Hi Iuliana, lovely to have you on Sabbatical Stories.
Hello Bex, nice to meet you.
Yeah, and you. And we are fellow graduates of the Travel Coach Network, I understand.
Yes, indeed.
So thanks to Sahara Rose for her global network, and how amazing that we get to do this today. Iuliana, as it's your sabbatical story, who better to introduce yourself than you? So could you please give us a bit of an overview to your sabbatical story and who Iuliana is?
My sabbatical story, or my sabbatical stories, started more than 10 years ago when I had a job that I didn't love doing, when I traveled very, very little and was dreaming of traveling more. When I didn't have any purpose in my life, I felt demotivated and depressed, and the routine from home didn't help me too much. So eventually, after hearing other people's stories of traveling and taking sabbaticals, I decided to give it a try. My first long-term trip was to Morocco more than 10 years ago in 2015. And it was indeed a transformative trip that has shifted my mindset, my perspective on life. It brought me a lot of positive energy and good vibes and motivation and a clear image of what I want to do with my life. It was even more transformative because I traveled solo. So I had nobody to rely upon. So not only that it was a long-term trip, but I was also solo. So it was also a self-discovery. Yeah, this is how I got into these career breaks or sabbaticals. This is what I'm also doing today. I'm still continuing this rule of taking at least 1 or 2 sabbaticals per year.
Talk us through where you're from and what you were doing pre your Morocco trip.
I'm from Romania. At that time, I was a teaching assistant in university. I truly hated from all my heart teaching. I was there just because it happened, but I never wanted to be a teacher. I had a very low salary, so the job part, the career didn't really bring me any kind of satisfaction. I was really feeling it at a turning point when I needed to change something, but I didn't know what and how. This is how I discovered what to do next through solo traveling and taking a longer break. Once I started to travel, I always dreamt of traveling, but I never had the courage to doing it, especially solo, especially outside of the European continent, which is so different than Africa or Asia. During that trip, I noticed that my mood changed a lot, my energy changed a lot. I was always feeling very motivated to explore new places, to discover new people, to get to know the culture on a deeper level. So all kind of things that you never have the occasion to do them back home. Or even if you do it, the cultural differences are not big enough to produce a deeper transformation. it was a really transformative part for me. I really enjoyed it a lot, and I figured out that I didn't even have to think more about it, but I just figured out, yes, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. If I have this at least once or twice per year, I'm okay.
How long was the original sabbatical?
The original sabbatical was 6 weeks, so just 1 month and a half. We are used to hearing that a sabbatical is 1 year. Okay, so maybe 1 month and a half compared to 12 months, it's very little. But considering that at that time I had only 1 or 2 weeks normal holidays, taking this leap to 6 weeks was pretty pretty deep, because it brought a new travel style, a new travel pace, because you cannot run all the time, you also have to rest. So it brought some changes in my life. From my point of view, it was definitely a break that put an end to something that was old, not healthy, not functional, and brought a new light in the room and in my life.
Yeah, and do you know what? Thank you for sharing that, because what I wanted out of this podcast was for it to be a bit of a myth-busting exercise as well. And as you said, a lot of people seem to have a preconceived idea of how long a sabbatical or a career break should be. You know, whether it should be 6 months, a year, you know, however long. Whereas actually, I think it's around the intention and the experience that you get. I mean, obviously, you know, a week or 2 weeks is considered a holiday, but as you've proved, you know, that 6 weeks, because of what it did for you and how you approached it, was totally transformational. You mentioned that, you know, you'd never had the courage really to do the solo travel, and you knew you didn't want to be where you were, but you didn't really know what you wanted to do, and you'd heard stories of other people's travels or career break. Mm-hmm. Is there, you know, a pivotal moment where you remember thinking, or a story that landed with you that was really that turning point?
Yes, before starting to travel solo, I was traveling with groups or with travel agencies. And whenever I returned home, I was totally frustrated, because I'm a very curious person. I would have liked to explore and to see more and spend more time at a place, and I didn't have the chance. So I spent the same amount of money or even more, because travel agencies are more expensive. And I got home frustrated, tired, exhausted, slept for 1 week, and so on. This was kind of a turning point when I decided, okay, there's no way I continue doing that, because I also had big insomnia and everything. So a whole range of issues. I just hit the wall over and over again. And then at some point, I started hosting on Couchsurfing, and I hosted a couple of young girls who were traveling solo, managing everything on their own, and even being hosted by apparently strangers. And that's when I thought, you know what, instead of continuing to do what I did with groups, big groups and travel agencies, why wouldn't I try to travel solo? Because look, these girls are doing it. I mean, so hosting these solo female travelers has helped me to get in touch with my inner power and my courage, and say, okay, I can start small with a small thing, with a not far away, not too long, and see how it goes. Yeah, you don't get out of your comfort zone, boom, just like that. You start small with small steps and then adjust it. Yeah, so this was a turning point. The pain that was there, the growing pains that were there, and then the example, the story of the people that I hosted, which motivated me and connected me to that energy, because they had a different vibe, and I was like, I want to be like you.
What motivated you to go on Couchsurfing and host?
The town where I lived and my hometown where I continue to live when I am at home, it's a pretty it's not a small town, but a medium town. So the social life, it's not really very vibrant. It's more a family-oriented town with families, kids, and couples. So there's not a big social life. And I was very eager to to meet new people, to find out new things. I'm a curious person by default. So when I heard about Couchsurfing, I said, oh, okay, I can give it a try and see what happens. I mean, nobody will force me to host somebody that I don't want. I am the owner, it's my house. I am the one to agree first. Yeah, so, and I liked it very much, and I continue doing this to these days. I just spent New Year's Eve with Couchsurfers in Penang, so...
Yeah, wow. So it goes both ways, right?
It's I'm still there after more than 10 years.
Yeah, fabulous. So you mentioned you went to Morocco. What was the motivation to go to Morocco? How did you decide where to go? What sort of things did you do to be able to plan what you were going to do and where you were going?
The reason I chose Morocco was, first of all, because it was a different continent than Europe. So I was attracted by the cultural differences. I wanted to know more than what we have in Europe. Then because it was pretty close to my home country, to Romania. So I didn't have to go 12 hours to fly 10 hours to Southeast Asia. That's why I say that taking small steps, especially at the beginning, it's essential, and it's part of the planning. Since you asked about planning, boom, don't jump without the parachute from the beginning. Yeah. And as for planning, I usually plan beforehand, but not very day by day. I have a rough idea of what I want to do and of the itinerary that I want to have, but I don't make all the bookings before I'm leaving. I just have a rough idea of what I want to do. And once I'm there, I just connect to myself, because this is part of the personal development process of travel. I just connect to myself and see how I feel. Do I want to spend more time here? Do I want to proceed? Am I rested enough? Have I slept enough to drive so much if I rent a car or not? So I am also going somehow with the flow, but having a kind of itinerary. Yeah. I read before. I chose the places that I want to go to, and then from those places I went only to half of them, maybe, let's say.
When you were in Morocco, so you mentioned that it was super transformative in Morocco. What made it transformative, and what changed when you went back to Romania?
First of all, okay, it was not my first solo trip, but it was my first long-term solo trip. So I really had the chance to get in touch with myself on a longer period. Okay, so 10 hours per day traveling with myself, that's when you are really connected to yourself. I had the chance to ask myself what I want to do, what do I need in that moment, and to honor my needs, to honor my wants and needs, which otherwise we tend most of the times to be influenced by other people of what they want, but sometimes we neglect ourselves a lot. And I used to do that, unfortunately, before. Yeah, I was the perfect people pleaser. So this was the first big transformation, that I connected to myself and I honored my wants and needs.
And was it your wants and needs for then, or your wants and needs for the future?
My wants and needs for then, for the present moment of the trip. Yeah, because, everybody recommends live in the present moment. Well, I didn't do that. So it allowed me to connect to the present moment, live in the present moment, get excited about the present moment, and live my life as I wanted and as I dreamed. That's where the power of career break or long-term travel comes in. When you do that on a regular basis for a longer period of time, when you go back home, you are so used to listening to yourself that you cannot go back to the old patterns.
It's like a muscle, isn't it?
Exactly.
If you keep using the muscle,
exactly,
and that's where the integration when you come home, or in your case, the continuous sabbaticals each year, act as then that sort of strategy to be able to keep using the muscle so that you don't regress.
Yes, because it is said that if you want to change a habit, you need to practice it at least for 21 days if it's a small habit. For bigger habits, maybe more. After 45 days, the habit is already, even if it's not integrated 100% and consolidated, at least it has made a change, which otherwise in the home environment, it's hard to get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that was maybe the first and biggest transformation, that I couldn't go back to the old patterns when I got home. It was impossible. I felt that there is a change. At that time, I was not aware of the changes. At that time, I hadn't studied so much psychology and neuroplasticity and everything as I did after that. But I felt that there was a change. So the change happens even if you are aware or even if you are not aware. The change happens anyway. And this is one of the magic powers of traveling long term, that you change anyway and your life changes.
And that's super interesting. So you weren't even really aware of it when you got back, the shift, until much later. When did you become aware of that?
I think I was 5 years into solo long-term travel when I started to figure out that my confidence was different, that I felt more courageous, more determined to find solutions, to approach, to not be afraid of many things. Yeah, I think I was already 5 years into doing that when I realized after taking part in a lot of personal development programs and therapies, it was a bit weird for me because after those programs and therapies, I didn't really feel a shift. But when I came back from a long-term trip, I felt the shift. So I was like, wait a minute, I'm doing all those therapies, but I'm not feeling the big wow as they market it, because the marketing is always good. But I feel those changes that all the psychology articles speak about when I come back from my trips. So that's when I put into balance the two things that I was doing, personal development and travel, and I was like, hey, travel for me is personal development.
Perception versus reality.
Yeah, exactly.
You came back from Morocco. What changed when you were back from Morocco? Like, how did life look in comparison to when you left 6 weeks before?
So even before going to Morocco, I had quit my old job and started freelance travel writing. And when I came back from Morocco, I decided that I'm not going back to that job that I hated, because I was too much in touch with feeling good instead of struggling.
Thriving, not surviving.
Yeah, and I was also in touch with, okay, whatever it happens, I can find solutions. Because when you travel, you find solutions every 5 minutes. Constantly. Yeah, so I said, okay, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I will find solution. I shifted completely my career. I also shifted the group of friends. I also shifted because I started to travel constantly. So every year I have in plan to travel. There's no way, there's no travel plan.
And I'm sure the audience would love to understand how you went about shifting your career. So how did you get into travel writing from being a teaching assistant in a university?
I love to write. I had a blog for a long time. At that time, I thought, okay, how can I combine travel with writing? I came up with the idea of writing a series of books. It took me indeed 10 years to publish the first book. I published it only last year, the transformational travel memoir about Morocco. But I eventually did it. That's when it started in the baby. It was a baby at that time. Yes, I was very much focused on putting my energy on something that I love.
And what were the challenges in changing career and getting noticed and I suppose the break in travel writing?
Yeah, for me, the first challenge was that at that time, I didn't speak English so well as I do now. So The language barrier was pretty big for me at that time, but I was very motivated to overcome, and I started to study English and grammar and everything to improve my English. Then it was also to make connections with editors who didn't know me, to position myself as an expert for Southeastern Europe, the Balkan area, from where I am, and of course people's opinion, who said that I'm crazy, so these kind of things. Yeah, so the old environment that always tries to pull you back.
And what would your advice be to the audience if, somebody finds themselves in that situation where they're with a group of individuals who are trying to hold them back? How did you break free of that?
I would say ignorance is bliss. Even though it's hard, you don't break through just like that. It's a trial and error. So again, the baby steps are crucial. Sometimes you will get back and you will listen again to what they say. The more I traveled and the more I got in touch with myself, the more I listened to myself and not to somebody else.
Your inner confidence grew and you listened to your gut and your internal story. Yeah.
And nowadays, I don't even try to listen anymore. So
don't even hear it anymore.
Yeah, I go to the end. I know that it's not whatever I'm told. I'm okay. That's your part, but I know myself and I know better what I need.
Yeah. And you've talked a lot about those baby steps, and I think what's so important is to share with the audience, that there's also no such thing as an overnight success. You can't, as you say, just step into something without the consideration, the work, the dedication and that sort of ongoing, continuous trial and error, as you say. And let's fast forward a little bit. So 10 years ago was Morocco, your first most transformative sabbatical. What has life looked like since then? And you've talked about having travel each year and a sabbatical each year. Talk us through some of the most memorable sabbaticals that you've had.
So after Morocco, as I said, I started to travel every year. Solo, first of all, and second of all, the second condition, let's say, was to be at least 1 month. After Morocco, I took usually 1 or 2 breaks of minimum 1 month per year, usually totalizing somewhere like 4 to 5 months, so that the transformation continued due to these long-term trips. Also, after a while, I started to feel that I would increase a bit the period. At first, this depended a lot on the country I was traveling. For example, in 2017, I went to Jordan, which is a pretty small country. And I estimated that 1 month it is okay. So there I stayed for 1 month. But for example, when I toured the western part of Turkey, which on the map looks small, in reality is pretty big. I wanted to do all Turkey in 3 months, but I wasn't able. I did only half of Turkey in 3 months.
Yeah, wow.
So that one was a 3 months trip. So I usually adjusted the length of the trip to the size of the country. Once again, at that time, I didn't have in mind to get a transformation. My goal was just to travel and be in the energy, the positive energy that travel brings. So that was the main goal, to feel good about it and to do something that I love. Afterwards, I started to increase the length of the trip, because I was aware of the transformations, and I also noticed that I'm more creative, I'm more inspired, I'm more everything is exponentially good when I travel and I'm moving around. Nowadays, I'm traveling for almost 4 months.
What are the considerations back in Romania that you have to think about and plan for when you're not there?
Not much, really, because my work now is totally online. especially as a travel coach. So that was one of the other conditions, let's say, to never have to be in a certain place with my job, to be able to work online even before the COVID. So not much. I just have to to pay the, not even the rent. I just have to pay the some fees at the local association, and not much.
So when you're talking about these 4 months that you're traveling for, are you working throughout those 4 months?
I'm in the maintenance mode. Like the big amount of work, I do it when I'm at home, and that's when I am 10 hours per day deep into everything, and I take care of everything. Now I'm in the maintenance mode, like, okay, I'm working, but not 10 hours per day.
Yeah. Okay. So you really plan for those 4 months of
Yeah.
being able to
Yeah.
take your foot off the pedal and be full on through the sort of 8 months that you're at home for, and then be in maintenance mode for 4 months. And I love that, because that's really creating your own schedule, your own way of working. You mentioned travel writing, you've mentioned travel coach. So talk us through, exactly what you do right now with regards to work and your career.
So I manage now to combine even these two ones, travel writing with travel coaching. So after graduating from Saharas, I help people to unlock the transformative power of solo travel, to overcome their challenges, their life challenges, whatever it might appear, embrace their true authentic selves, and achieve their deepest goals through solo travel. And at the same time, because I wanted, as I said before, I wanted very much to tell my story. My dream project is to write a series of transformational travel memoirs and show how travel has changed and impacted me. Until now, I managed to publish the first one, the first volume, unfortunately just in Romanian, but I hope that this year I'm able to get the translation. The next travel memoir, it's half written.
Yes, congratulations.
So I added to the travel memoir this dimension, this transformative dimension.
And maybe you need to take a sabbatical to spend time translating it.
Well, I think we have modern solutions that can help now, and native English speakers that can help.
Maybe that's an opportunity for anybody listening that wants to take a sabbatical that is a translator. And as a travel coach, so you mentioned a couple of things that you do, but how do you work with people, and what are the sort of things that you work with them on?
I love very much, what I love the most about solo travel is the self-confidence that gives. So I always give this example of boosting your self-confidence, because you are solo, you have to take decisions on your own, you have to find solutions on your own, you have to ask for help for yourself, which sometimes is very difficult. And in the end, when you see how many things you have achieved by yourself, your self-confidence is just booming. It's exactly as you said before, it's like a muscle that you train it every day, bit by bit. But after a trip of doing this, after a solo trip, you really feel that empowerment that I can do whatever I put my mind to. I always give this example because I think that this is one of the greatest benefits of solo travel. And working on self-confidence and self-empowerment, it's solo travel is perfect for that. Also, people who feel that they are not true to themselves, connecting to your authentic self, self-discovery, getting to know yourself better, getting out of the routine from home and getting in touch with your true self, your true wants and needs, and honoring them. Because when we are not in touch with them, we will eventually feel unhappy and unfulfilled, and we don't know why. Well, guess why? So that's something that solo travel, once again, pushes you to do that, because you are by yourself. Nobody will judge you. Nobody will pull you back. You have the total freedom to do what's best for you. So that's another great personal development goal that is very easy, I would say, to achieve through solo travel. And then, of course, any other kind of life challenge that you have, whether that you are going through a breakup, divorce, or I don't know, solo travel will help you to do that, because once again you go through so many small challenges. They don't have to be big challenges, but you go through so many small challenges that when you try to think back home of your problems, they are so far away, deep into the past, that they don't make sense anymore. You get to see the problem from the outside, and you are not anymore into the middle of the issue.
And when do you work with people? Is it through the planning stage? Is it whilst they're on their trip?
Always start with the planning stage. And the most important part, that especially with people traveling solo for the first time, is overcoming their fear of the unknown. You are going into an unknown culture that is very different maybe from the one that you have home. Fear of not being safe, because we hear so much on the TV and read so many news in the media and everywhere, that we have the feeling that it's going to happen exactly to me. No, it's not. And also fear of loneliness. People have the feeling that if they travel solo, nobody is going to speak to them. They are going to speak to the walls all the time, and they are going to be the only person on the planet. No, when you travel solo, there are a lot of locals curious to hear about your story, where you are going, where you are coming from, and you even end up interacting with more people when you travel solo when you travel with your partner, who maybe wants to spend more time with you, and you don't have to spend more time with other people that you meet. So
it's so true. It's so true. And I think also you're more approachable on your own. So I think having traveled solo, and also majority of my travel has been with my husband, I'm sure that I'm approached more by all walks of life if you're on your own, and whether that be in an airport, whether that be in the middle of a hustle and bustle of Moshi in Africa, or whether that be in Thailand, you're definitely approached more, I think, if you're on your own. But also, you're right, you put yourself
yeah.
out there more, I think, because you don't have anybody else to rely on, or you don't have anybody else to just fall back into that. It's habitual again, isn't it? It's that habit of you go out, you explore, and then you come back and you kind of talk to each other about the day, rather than if you're solo, you go out, you explore, and then you come back and you seek somebody out to exchange your stories with, and things like that. So yeah, I totally understand that.
Yeah.
What is the one thing that you wish you'd known if you go back 10 years to just before taking that first really transformative sabbatical?
One thing that stopped me for a long time to do that was other people's opinion and their judgment. So I wish I wouldn't have paid so much attention to what others said, because there's always going to be someone saying, judging, having a different opinion or something. And I was also very ashamed at that time of traveling solo, because I considered that if you travel solo, it means that you have nobody on this planet to care about you. And this is not true.
Such old stories, isn't it? Or sort of societal stories that are
Exactly.
are totally old and wrong.
Yeah, I wish I wouldn't have been so emotional about this at that time. Now I don't care anymore. At that time, I listened a lot to what other people said. And it took me a long time of solo travel to see that people came to me exactly with the opposite.
And I think travel does that to you. And I also think age. For me, the older I get, the less shits I give, quite frankly, of what others think. And look, that leads me nicely onto how I like to end the podcast, is around asking you for your top 3 tips that you would give the audience that are either thinking about or considering a sabbatical, or are currently on one. Like, what would be your top 3 tips?
One of them, I have already said it, and I think
Don't
it's
listen
going
to
to be
others.
the same one. Don't listen to others. First of all, don't listen to others. Listen only to yourself. The second one would be, don't plan something big that frightens you. Take those baby steps that I've kept giving examples. Take something that takes you out of your comfort zone, but just a little, not too much. Because if it's a quantum leap, it will take you out of your comfort zone so much that you will panic, you will have a lot of anxiety, and you are not going to enjoy it. So see what your personality is, what your risk profile is, because we all have different levels of risks that we can take. At the beginning, for example, I wouldn't have taken such big risk as I'm doing now, but the more I extended my comfort zone, I can afford now to feel comfortable in more difficult countries, for example. Know how much you are able to risk. And the third one, don't plan everything ahead, or don't try to control everything, because it's impossible. Of course, researching, documenting, it's advisable, but we tend, especially when we are at home and we are thinking about the upcoming trip, to plan everything and if possible to book everything ahead. No. The first week it's okay, but after that, just leave space to get in touch with yourself and see if you are still willing to do that, because you will be a different person, so maybe you want to do something else. Yeah, but be spontaneous, not controlling everything.
I think it's been probably the most common tip throughout series 1 is the not over planning and letting, going with the flow. And we've had some beautiful examples in series 1 around, even somebody meeting their husband because they didn't stick to the rigid itinerary, and they kind of spoke to a stranger that led them somewhere, that led them somewhere else, that led them somewhere else. So yeah, great top tips. Thank you so much, Iuliana, for joining us today. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you or order your book or work with you, where's the best place to find you?
At the moment, my travel website is undergoing transformations. So everything is under transformation. But my social medias are active.
And what are the handles? We'll put them in the show notes as well.
It's Authentic Travels on Instagram and Traveling Authentic on Facebook. Those are
fabulous. And that's where people can get in touch to work with you.
And I also have a free ebook that we can add the link and they can download it from there.
Wonderful. Well, look, lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for your time and enjoy Malaysia.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. Yeah, and greetings from Penang.
Thanks, Iuliana.
We're all affected, yeah. And it's like he said, I won't let it out.
Thank you so much for listening. I truly appreciate each and every one of you taking the time to be here. And of course, a massive thank you to Iuliana for sharing her incredible journey of transformation through solo travel and her insights into building a career around it. If today's episode resonated with you and you'd like to learn more about travel coaching, you can connect with Iuliana through LinkedIn or her website, Authentic Travels, where you can also find her book, Balak Balak. A massive thank you as always to Auntie B at the Flaxen, my wonderful, patient and talented producer. And a big shout out to the amazing Joe Cook, whose soulful vocals we're lucky enough to feature throughout the show. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could like and rate the show, and even make my day by leaving a positive comment too. If you know someone who would love this conversation, please do send it their way. Your support helps get these stories out to more people who need to hear them. Do you have a sabbatical story to share? Or maybe you know somebody whose journey would inspire others? Do let me know. You can get in touch via Sabbatical Stories podcast on Instagram or message me on LinkedIn. I'm Bex Thomas. Until next time, take care of yourself, keep dreaming big, and remember, your sabbatical story is waiting to be written.
Taking matters into your own hands, you won't believe that you're made.